Almost nobody actually understands how the Airbnb algorithm works. If you watch a typical Airbnb experts on TikTok or YouTube, they all repeat the same generic advice. Drop your prices on the weekends to beat the competition, or just use iPhone photos so your listing looks authentic, or keep your rates low so you can stay booked out months in advance. Look, it sounds safe, but following that advice is the fastest way to kill your margins and attract nightmare guests. But after making hundreds of Airbnb listings, I pretty much cracked the code of the algorithm and figured out how it actually works, which has allowed me to grow my own Airbnb business to over 7 figures off the back of the Airbnb site, as well as helped over 400 clients generate millions in combined revenue off the platform. In the next few minutes, I want to show you how to beat the new Airbnb algorithm with proven strategies that I've learned in the past 5 years. First, let's debunk all the myths. Myth number 1, you have to make sure your title covers everything. The more detailed guests see up front, the more likely they are to book. This is very common, and what most people do, especially when they first start an Airbnb, is they try to squeeze every amenity they have or everything that they have in their property in the title of the Airbnb listing. The thing that I teach all my students in all of my properties, to be quite frank, is the simplest title. So if it's close to a hospital, I'll just put close to X hospital, 10 minutes in walking distance, right? Something super quick that is going to attract the type of people that we want to serve in the properties, but we don't need to be listing all the amenities that the property has or anything like that. We want to keep it very simple and straight to the point. So when people are scrolling on the Airbnb app, if they're looking for an Airbnb close to a hospital or close to a school or university, if that displays in the title, that's going to be more enough to grab their attention, get them to click on your listing, and then they can see more of the actual listing description itself at the bottom of your Airbnb listing, which is going to state the amenities, how big the place is, the bedroom sizes, right? The mattress sizes, right? That's when you get more granular and more specific. You don't need to be doing that in the title of your Airbnb listing, and this is where a lot of new hosts go wrong. Myth number 2, once you hit superhost status, you've made it. That badge sticks with your account from then on. So superhost is a really good thing to have, and you are not going to be able to accomplish getting it in your first month of hosting, right? It takes time to build a reputation on the Airbnb platform, stacking up really good 5-star reviews and having a good response time. That's how you earn the superhost badge. And what superhost actually is, it's basically Airbnb awarding you, saying, hey, this is a really good, reliable property that a lot of guests like, and the host does a really good job hosting. And essentially that's going to help you in the SEO of the Airbnb platform itself. So they're going to push your listing a little bit more. They're going to show it on the first page. Hey, they may even run it in ads, right? On Instagram ads for their Airbnb Instagram itself. I've seen that a couple times. It's happened to my properties. It's happened to my students' properties as well. So having superhost status is a really good thing, but it's going to take some time to work up to. And they usually do this in a quarterly checkup. So every quarter they go through all the properties on the Airbnb platform, see who has really good 5-star reviews and what hosts have been performing really well. Where a lot of people slip up is once they achieve superhost status their first time or multiple times, they kind of just start slacking off. And that's the last thing that you want to do. Superhost is going to push your listing, like I mentioned, in the SEO, in the algorithm, and get shown to more guests. But that's something that we want to maintain and keep that badge on our profile. And in order to do so, we need to continue having fast response time. We need to continue getting 5-star reviews. And so many people tend to just fall off that. They get superhost status and they're like, oh, that's it, I did it. And they fall off with response time. They maybe take a little bit longer to respond, a couple hours rather than 30 minutes. Or they are like, a 4-star review is okay, or a 3-star review isn't going to bother me too much. It's the exact opposite. When you get superhost status, you want to work even harder to maintain that status. And that's what's going to allow you to really thrive month over month for your entire hosting status. Myth number 3, if a listing isn't getting booked, something about the property itself must be turning people off. I can't tell you how many times people sign an arbitrage lease and it takes them a couple days or even a couple weeks to get a booking, and they immediately resort to their property thinking it's not going to be profitable. There's a lot more that goes into having a profitable Airbnb, and that goes on the back end side of things, having correct pricing, having really good 5-star reviews. And the last thing that you want to do is just start assuming that you need a bigger, more luxury or expensive property. That's not always the case. First things first, once we have that title ironed out, we need to make sure our pricing is dialed to a T, and that's what's going to allow people to book with you for longer stays and have a higher occupancy rate. So I would almost lean more on having a dialed in pricing than a super high-end luxury property. Yes, maybe having a luxury property is going to be a little bit more eye appealing, but the pricing is what gets people to book. It's the same thing when you go shopping, right? You're going to compare the price tags, and sometimes you're not always going to go with the most expensive option. It's the same thing here. So pricing is the most important thing, alongside of having good reviews and stacking and building that reputation immediately when you're going live on Airbnb. So instead of listening to those myths, here's what works in the Airbnb algorithm right now. Here's what the Airbnb algorithm is mainly paying attention to. So Airbnb is putting a lot of emphasis on the hosts that are responding to guests the fastest. So right when guests are booking with you, you need to have a welcome message go out ASAP. This welcome message should consist of a check-in code for their stay, so they have a seamlessly easy connected to your lock. And then you also want to give them all the parking instructions and anything else that they need for arrival so they have a very smooth check-in. This is extremely important because it shows the algorithm that you are caught up to speed right when guests are booking with you and you're getting them everything that they need to have a smooth check-in. That's extremely important because a lot of hosts, if they don't get this information to guests on how to check in properly, it just causes a lot of friction. It causes a lot of issues in the beginning. And if Airbnb notices that you're getting that information and doing your job as a host from day one, right when they book with you, it's going to allow the algorithm to continue pushing your listing because you're doing the things that you need to be doing as a really good host. And a quick rule of thumb or KPI, if you want to take note of this, is the best thing to do is always respond to your messages in less than an hour. Anything over that is going to affect you a little bit in a poor way. Of course, the fastest is best. I always get my welcome message out in the first 10 minutes of a guest booking, but I always, as a rule of thumb, tell my team and myself KPIs under an hour right when that booking gets booked. We want to get that message out. To go alongside of that, Airbnb isn't just tracking the communication and how fast you respond to guests. They're also tracking on how fast you respond to Airbnb support. So if Airbnb is reaching out to you via the messaging app or if they're calling you, they're going to take tabs on how fast you respond to them. So if they're reaching out to you from the guest side of things, saying that they need something done or they're asking questions about your property or your listing, they're also going to keep that in mind on how fast you respond to them. So they both go hand in hand. We want to be making sure that we're responding to guests ASAP, getting that welcome message out right when they book, and also responding to Airbnb support as fast as possible. Next up, good service earns you Superhost. To elaborate a little bit more on what Superhost is, how you achieve it, it takes time to earn, right? This is not something that happens overnight. You have to stack up 5-star reviews. You have to show that you're a good host, right? Answering questions on time, answering guest messages on time. And this stuff takes time. So give yourself a good couple months, and they do these checks quarterly. So every quarter they will review Superhost badges that are already out and see if those hosts can maintain them and see what new hosts can actually qualify for new Superhost. Next, pricing on listings that change frequently, meaning daily, is going to be better than listings where pricing sits still every single day. Now, this is where a lot of people go wrong with their pricing strategy, and they use a static pricing system. So what a static pricing system is, means it's a fixed price that they're charging every single day of the week and every weekend of the month. That is the last thing that we want to be doing. So even if your weekday prices are the same and your weekend prices are different, but they're not adjusting, that's a massive problem. That's called a static pricing system. We want to switch over to a dynamic pricing software. We've talked about this before, that being PriceLab specifically. And this is going to be a dynamic pricing software that is going to fluctuate our pricing every single day based on the market, season, and demand. This is what's going to take your occupancy to 90, 100% occupancy months. That's going to allow you to be more profitable. So with all of that being said, here's what I would do if I was launching a new Airbnb listing right now. So first, we need to hire a really good professional photographer. A lot of people just try and use their iPhone and take good photos of the property. And although that may suffice for the first couple days the listing is up, that's not something that we want to use long-term on your listing. So you do not want to cheap out on a professional photographer. I like to find people that have shot real estate before, specifically Airbnb listings, because they always make the photos look better, right? It brightens up the room a little bit. It's going to show the actual true colors of the furniture, the actual decor, and the artwork that you have for that property. And that's what's going to allow more people to click on your property, which is going to convert to more bookings. So cheaping out on a photographer is the last thing you want to be doing. And let me give you the best example, right? When you go on a first round interview, you're not going to show up in a t-shirt and sweatpants. You're going to show up with your best suit, looking the sharpest, with a fresh haircut, because first impression matters. It's the same thing with your Airbnb listing. So when people are scrolling on Airbnb to find a place to stay, they are going to click on the listing that stands out the most, the photos that pop the most and that look the most eye appealing. So we want to find a really good professional photographer. And for this, it's really finding someone that has shot real estate before, specifically maybe even Airbnb listings. Next, we want to go ahead and keep the title short. So a really good example of this would be 10 minutes from downtown Raleigh or 10 minutes outside of X hospital with a king bed, right? Something very short and sweet that outlines where we're close to, what the best amenity is in the listing. We don't need to overcomplicate this, so keep it very short and simple. Those are some really good examples that you could go off of. The reason why I have all my students keep their titles short and my listings as well is, again, we're pointing out like the best thing in the property, but we don't want to overcomplicate things. We just want to get people to click on the listing, and in the listing description, it's going to have all the amenities. It's going to have everything that your property offers, and 9 out of 10 people before they book are going to go through that stuff anyway. So keep it short and sweet. Put on the title what's going to get people to click on the listing, and sometimes you could play around with this stuff. Let's say you launch a listing and maybe it is taking a little bit longer to get bookings than you thought and your pricing's dialed in. You could change these titles. There's nothing wrong with that. I've changed and swapped titles all the time, see if it's going to increase my booking odds or increase my occupancy, and you could play around with this stuff. So never think, oh, it's set the title and forget about it. You can always fluctuate it, but the best rule of thumb is keep it short, simple, and sweet. Next, you want to only post the important photos photos on your listing. I see way too many people that are posting all these pictures of the neighborhood, the surrounding properties, or attractions that are in the downtown area. It's not really necessary. I like to keep it simple, guys. Take a photo of the front door, and then you want to take more specific photos inside. That's what guests care about because that's where they're staying. So if you're going to overdo the photos, there's nothing wrong with that. But add more photos where the guests are actually going to be laying their head and staying. So maybe more photos of the bedroom, more photos of the living room, maybe more photos of the amenities. You don't need to go crazy of outdoor photos, the house itself, or the apartment complex. You could put that stuff in the listing description. You don't need photos of it. Next, you want to make sure that you have all of your automations set and up and running that you've tested before you go live with your Airbnb property. I've seen it countless times where people go live with their properties. They immediately get a booking in the first 6 hours or 8 hours of going live, and they don't have their automated messages set up. So when the guests book with them, they kind of lose that window of that first hour response time, and they don't get that welcome message out, and it hurts their profile. So I tell all my students to double check all of your automated messages, make sure that they're going to fire, and then go ahead and turn your listing live to start getting bookings, right? We want to make sure that stuff is in queue. This way we're not missing out on having a slower response time and scrambling when guests are booking with us because it's just going to be a pain in the butt. We don't want to deal with it. This leads me to my next one. Make sure that you are answering all messages in under an hour. Don't wait until you're fully booked up. Make sure that it's taken care of from day one. And it also goes alongside of what I mentioned before. Make sure those automated messages are set up because then you don't have to deal with it. And to be honest with you guys, like we want to build these good habits in the beginning part of being a host because it's only going to shape you to become a better host with more properties that you launch and the bigger that you grow your own company. Following that, we want to make sure that you have professional hosting tools turned on in your Airbnb hosting account. This is a very simple setting. You just go to your settings in your hosting Airbnb account. There's going to be an area where you can turn professional hosting tools on. Almost all accounts will not have this on by default, so you have to manually go in there and turn this on. What the professional hosting tools is going to allow you to do is use something called rule sets. Rule sets is going to be the only pricing stuff you're going to touch on the Airbnb account. We're going to dive more into that here in a second. Now, if I was trying to level up an established listing by taking it to the next level, first, I would actually find where your calendar has gaps. A really good way to do this is to backlog the bookings that you get once you have a listing that's been up and running for some time. And what you can do is you can actually cross-reference to see your price ceiling and your price floor, seeing what people are willing to pay at certain times of the year or certain times of the month, or seeing what you have to drop your price to get a last minute booking. This is really good data to have, and that's what's really going to allow you to sharpen your pricing skills and allow you to boost your occupancy rate. Next, you want to pull your last 20 conversations and just find the average time that you're responding to your guests. This is going to give you a really good idea of, hey, following that metric of you replying to all of your guests under that hour, again, that's going to inch you closer to getting Superhost. So pulling those last 20 messages is a really good idea where you could find and set that KPI for your company and also for bringing on future virtual assistants to take over guest communication as a whole. And what I like to do is pull the last 20 messages, find the average of your response time, and just find the time that you're sending messages and the guests responding to you. And that's going to give you a really good indication of, hey, do you have to improve on responding faster, or are you doing really well? Do you have to follow this pace and what that looks like? It's going to give you that baseline on how well you're responding to guests. In addition to that, another good thing to do is review your last 10 reviews that you had from guests, because sometimes one bad review is a little just a noise, and that's common. It's going to happen. But if you hear a problem or an issue that's going on in your property twice or 3 or 4 times, that's a big indicator that it's probably true, and that's something that you need to put attention to and have your team fix it, such as maybe the toilet keeps getting clogged or the lights are flickering. Just to highlight this, reviews are the most important parts of your listing. Okay, we want to make sure that we're always keeping up with reviews. We're always trying to push for 5-star reviews. The best advice that I can give you guys as far as stacking up these 5-star reviews is 2 automated messages. The first one that I send on the first day after they check in, I say, hey, how's everything going? I hope you had a great check-in. Is there anything else that you need to have a 5-star stay? What I'm actually doing here is I'm implanting a seed in their head, basically saying, hey, I'm trying to make this a 5-star stay. In the beginning portion of their reservation, basically implementing, hey, I want to make sure that I'm doing my job as a host, so you do leave me a 5-star review. And then at the end, on the day of checkout, I send them another automated message saying, hey, we'd love to have you return. Would you be open to leaving us a 5-star review? And if you do not feel like this was a 5-star experience, please let me know here what we can improve on and how we can fix. We really appreciate hosting you. This is a really good fundamental way of, one, implementing and embedding that seed of, hey, we want to have a 5-star review from you. And at the end saying, hey, if you didn't have a 5-star review, please don't leave us a bad review. Please let us know internally what we can do to fix it and how we can make it right. On top of everything that I've mentioned so far, here's one of my favorite, most underused tricks on the entire platform. It's called professional hosting tools. And again, most hosts never turn it on, and it's also never on by default. Now, to get more granular on what professional hosting tools is allowing us to do as hosts, is it allows us to enable something called rule sets in the calendar section of your Airbnb account. Now, guys, I want to make this very clear. All of your pricing should be ran from Price Labs. We are not doing any pricing stuff separate from monthly, weekly, and daily discounts. All of our pricing is done via Price Labs. Okay, there's nothing else that you should be doing on Airbnb alone other than the discounts and these rule sets that we're going to dive into right now. These rule sets are actually what's going to allow you to boost your occupancy month after month. So let me give you guys a really clear example. When you guys have gaps in your calendar, so let's say you have a 7-day booking. After that booking, let's say you have a 5-day gap, meaning it's not booked. And then after that 5-day gap, let's say the remainder of the month is booked. Well, that 5-day gap, let's say we're charging $100 a night. If we don't get that booked, that's $500 a month that we're leaving on the table. So what we can do is we can input these things called rule sets on the Airbnb calendar to incentivize a mini discount on that 5-day gap. Because when there's specific days that go unbooked, well, those are specific dates that a guest has to be specifically searching for on the Airbnb platform to actually get a booking. And those are the hardest gaps to fill. That's why you see a lot of hosts struggling at a 60 or even 70% occupancy rate because they can't fill those short day gaps. So those are what these rule sets are for. It's there to incentivize on top of all the other discounts that you have and on top of the discounts Price Labs is embedding. We want to make sure that these rule sets are enabled. And this is more than an art than a science. It takes time to learn. This is a big portion that I work on with all my students. And that's how we take occupancy rate from sometimes to mid 50 occupancy rate all the way up to 90 plus. That's how you actually get the Airbnb algorithm to work in your favor. Now, if you want my team and me to step in and help build and scale your own portfolio, click the link in the description to book a call with us. But if you're not ready for a call yet and just want to see the exact blueprint on how I built a $30,000 a month Airbnb business without owning a single home, watch this video next. I'm going to walk you through the entire system, start to finish, including on how I find the right markets, get landlords to say yes, and automate the day-to-day automations.